Hi bestie, welcome back to my channel where you're certainly gonna get hooked on books. Today is a fun but lengthy video because we're going to be talking about my spring reading wrap up. We're going to talk about the 20 books that I read between March and May. I'm going to timestamp everything down below for you guys so you could skip around to whichever reviews you're interested in. But I am going to start with my average ratings and work all the way up to my 5-star reads. So let's get into it. So starting with our average books of the month, what I mean by average is a 3-star rating and above. I had no star rating below 3, luckily, in these past 3 months, so that is good. Just these books didn't hit the mark. They didn't hit a certain, they didn't scratch a certain itch in my brain that I really wanted them to scratch. There was a solid good book overall, but it just didn't hit the mark for me. And the first one is A Beautiful Couple by Leslie Wolfe. This is definitely a psychological thriller. It has a lot of twisty elements, kind of suspenseful, and definitely very domestic thriller in a sense. We're following a specific couple that their marriage seems to be like it's this beautiful, perfect, amazing, flawless thing. But when secrets start to arise and tensions start to rise, things just take a completely dark and sinister turn, and it becomes very clear and evident that someone is hiding the truth. And not everyone is who they seem to be. Thrillers are definitely like my go-to palate cleanser genre. Like, I read a lot of fantasy and horror, and I like to use thrillers as a palate cleanser because I always like that fast pace, like get the page turning, you want to find out the next thing that's going to happen. But like I was mentioning earlier, this one, it falls in the category of missing the mark for me, unfortunately. Thriller, I immediately always correlated to a fast-paced type of story, but unfortunately this one was kind of like the complete opposite. The whole story was like teetering and alluding to specific different plot twists that were gonna probably occur in the third act of the book. But at the end, like the plot twist was very predictable. Like I saw it like from the very beginning that it was gonna be this person, that this was specifically maybe gonna happen. And it wasn't as gut punching as I would want a thriller to be, To be quite frank and honest with y'all, it is a little bit forgettable because when I think about the story as a whole, like there's like bits and pieces that I remember, but maybe like the ending is the most memorable thing because of the plot twist, but again, very predictable. So I don't know. It kind of just didn't really like resonate with me. It wasn't like an Alice Feeney thriller for me that, if you know me, Alice Feeney has been like my favorite author this year. But I hate comparing other authors' works to this author, like, vice versa. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like to compare authors and their different writing styles and things like that. So I try not to let that, affect my rating and things like that. I try to really look into the story as a whole. And frankly, it just felt like something that has been done before, just in a different way with a different type of twist in a sense. But I don't know. It really didn't hit the mark for me, like I said. And for that reason, I gave that one a 3-star. The next one, I'm a little disappointed actually about this one, is The Sirens by Emilia Hart. This is definitely like a historical fantasy, I would say. And it really does teeter along the lines of like mysterious, because there was some mystery in there. The atmosphere was very, very, very like magical, and we're following 2 different timelines that are being like woven together, and we're following I think if I'm not wrong, it's 2 sets of different sisters that are connected to the sea in some type of way. And as the story like was unfolding, there was like very strong themes and messages of power, transformation, and definitely when it comes to the mystery element, a lot of hidden truths were coming to the surface. I just really wanted to love this one like really, really badly because I am a mermaid nerd. Like, I have a mermaid tattooed on my arm. I have a mermaid right next to me. I have little trinkets around the house. Like, you name it, I got it. So when I saw the book, I was like, oh my God, a book about like sirens / mermaids. It sounds so cool. And I'm not the type to always read the synopses. Like, maybe I'll read like the top blurb that kind of gives you like a quick glimpse of what the story might be about. But I most of the time like to go into stories blind because I don't want to go into it with expectations. I had kind of like the notion that this was going to be like a true mermaid / siren story, like somewhere along the lines of we're going to be following these specific women that discover that they are sirens, and then they completely transform and take the vow or whatever to be sirens only, and you know, they use their siren songs to allure men to the ocean, etc., etc. You know, I was expecting something like that, and don't get me wrong, it was kind of within that scope, but taken to a different direction. Definitely, I thought that the two timelines that we were following were smart to use because we are trying to merge those two stories together, and at the end, you know, the two stories do merge and we figure out why we were being told those two different timelines. And it was a very good payoff moment when you figured, like you put the pieces together and you figure it out. But like the first whole half of the book, the past timeline was not like clicking to me in my brain. I was trying to understand, like, why am I getting all of this information about this other timeline that I feel like there was like literally like no plot. Like we're just getting thrown random information back and forth about this timeline. And then the present timeline, there was actually a very solid plot line that we were following and trying to figure out. Honestly, I was kind of disappointed with this one. It wasn't as hard hitting as I wanted it to be. The fantastical elements were there, but not as prevalent. It felt more like of a historical fiction with like magical realism, but we added mermaids to make it fantastical. And don't get me wrong, I don't feel like there's anything wrong with the writing style. I did enjoy the writing style, and the actual storylines, once everything connected together, really made sense and it was enjoyable. But I have to admit, like the slight little expectations that I came into the story with is what really tampered my rating, unfortunately. And that's why I don't like to read synopses and stuff like that, or like even come into a book with any type of expectation. I should just stop expecting at this point. But all in all, I rated this one a 3-star. All right, the next one I want to talk to you guys about is These Summer Storms by Sarah McLean. So this is definitely a contemporary fiction story, I will say. It's heavily involved with lots of family drama. There's some inheritance game element in there. A little bit of a subplot of romance, which was kind of enjoyable, but I'll give you more insight on that in a little bit. Let me tell you, like I said, family drama was very prevalent in this story, to say the least. So basically, to kind of give you the setting, is we are following this girl by the name of Alice. She is going to travel back to her family's private island because her father just recently died. So they're trying to, you know, go through the motions of when a person dies, you know, like the funeral and the burial and all of those things, you know, and then figure out the thereafter, like the will and like what gets distributed and what gets sold, you know, the whole 9 yards. Come to find out that when they are done with the funeral and they're like trying to figure things out with the will, they find out that the dad put, what is that called when you put like a requisite, like a prerequisite in a sense. I'm forgetting the name of the word that I'm trying to use, but basically the dad was like, you guys have to do these specific tasks if you want to inherit your portion of the inheritance. And in a sense, they were like trials, so very loosely I want to use that word trials, because it's not really trials. Like each individual sibling and mom had a specific task to do in order to actually acquire the money, and the dad put like a specific individual that worked for him in charge of it to make sure that they all complete the task, and then he'll provide them with the inheritance money. And within this inheritance game, you know, a lot of old wounds between the families start to reopen. Very deep, long buried secrets between the family come to light. And as all of these things start to come to light, the family has to start confronting one another, and that's where the family drama starts to begin. And oh man, what can I say? I will admit that I'm not the biggest fan of like general / contemporary fiction, but what really had me intrigued with this one was the family drama and the inheritance game aspect. I was really excited when I heard that it was gonna be like a trials in a sense, because I thought that they were gonna be like competing to see who's gonna win all the money and things like that. But it didn't go down that route. It's like I said, it was more like just tasks that they were assigned to do. But within those tasks, they figure out that there was someone lying, or someone was keeping a secret, or, you know, X, Y, and Z is occurring, and they have to figure out a way to go past that. I don't know. I just feel like since it was shown to me like it was gonna be trials, I was like, okay, that should be fun. That should be interesting. But since it ended up just being like tasks, and then like there was some like little bit of mystery in there, it felt like a little flat for me. It just didn't pique my interest as much as I thought it was going to. And then there was a romance subplot, like I was mentioning, which came out of like left field, and it was kind of unexpected. And I guess it was enjoyable to a certain extent, but I did not like the characters involved. And I just didn't feel like a connection to them personally, and neither to their relationship that they were developing. It was just not off-putting, but it's just like it was bland. Like I didn't feel the chemistry. It felt more of like a one-night stand type of situation. So I just feel like the romance subplot was kind of thrown in there for like an additional like oomph to be added to the story, but I feel like it didn't really add much in my opinion. Overall, I rated it a 3.5 star. They are cutting our grass because it is grass cutting day or whatever. And if you hear the mowers in the background, no, you didn't. All right, the last one, part of the average section here I want to talk to you guys about is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. So this is obviously a horror, and it's definitely a combination of like that creepy with a little bit of dark humor and lots of family drama too, for sure. So basically it's kind of similar in a sense to the last book, but not really. So we're basically following this girl that she finds out that her parents died in an accident. So she has to go back to her old childhood home to, you know, figure things out and like, you know, sell the house and things like that. And then she reunites with her brother that they've been estranged for, I think it was a couple of years already. And, you know, they still don't see eye to eye, and they try to like kind of come up with an agreement to either sell the house or keep the house and things like that. But as they try to begin to settle things and their differences between each other, they start to uncover that there's something strange going on in the house. Something supernatural, paranormal. And I love that type of stuff, honestly, either in a movie or in a book. I love the supernatural / paranormal aspects of horror. I will say this one, I'm pretty positive that I read it primarily on audio. I might have started it physically, but then I went onto Hoopla and I got the audio because I was trying to get through my TBR that month pretty quickly because it was coming towards the end of the month. But anyways, I feel like the audiobook was definitely like a saving grace for this story, only because the narrators did a very good job, especially like in the creepy horror elements that were happening in the story. They really like, it really umps it up when you're hearing the scary parts instead of just reading it physically on paper, because I feel like if I would have just read it on the book, it wouldn't have felt as creepy as I felt when I was listening to it. Like the supernatural paranormal aspect of it was being depicted like with a little creepy voice, and like the sound effects, because it was a graphic audio. I forgot to mention it's a graphic audio. So all of the sound effects and the voices that the narrators were doing when it comes to those horror elements, that was done really, really well. And I feel like I said, that was the saving grace of this book, because those moments of horror actually felt creepy, unsettling. Like I was actually kind of scared while I was listening to the book. And honestly, with Grady Hendrix, this is the second book that I read by him, so I can't talk too much about this, but his writing style from the two books that I have read from him is very easy to digest, and the horror that he does is always within that paranormal realm. Like I read Horror Store, it's probably like somewhere behind me, I'm not sure where, but I read Horror Store, and that one was definitely within that paranormal realm too. I just feel like Grady Hendrix knows what he's doing when it comes to the paranormal aspects of horror. He does it really, really well in my opinion, and I really want to read more from him so I could kind of get a gist if this is like his niche, his specific niche within horror, or if he's dabbled into others, because I know that he has one called Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, and then the Southern Club of Slaying Vampires. I probably butchered that name completely, but you know, he's dabbled into different things, and I wonder if those also go into the paranormal realm. Anyways, back to How to Sell a Haunted House. One thing that I really struggled like so incredibly hard with this story was how unlikable the characters actually were. Like the brother and sister were the main characters of the book, and they were so unlikable. All the side characters, I didn't like a single one. Like there was not a single redeeming factor of any of these characters, none of them. And I'm telling you that the brother was probably the most unlikable one. Like since page 1, I did not like him. Like he was the most insufferable character I have ever read about. But all in all, the story was still good, I cannot lie, and I rated it a 3.5 star. All right, so now let's shift into my above average books, which are any book that I rated 4 stars and up. Well, except 5, so 4 or 4.5, because I'm not a big fan of the 0.25 or 0.75 ratings. The first one I want to talk to you guys about is Daggermouth by H.M. Wolf, and I'm pretty sure that everyone and their mother knows about this book. So it's definitely a dark fantasy / dystopian vibe, and it's very gritty, definitely very violent, and lots of morally gray characters. So we're following this girl who is a deadly assassin, an assassin for hire in a sense, I guess. There's definitely two different sides of this government. You know, there's the regime and then the resistance. And I don't want to say much else because I'm pretty sure most people have either read or know about this book already. It's coming out again because it got trad published. I think it's July 24th, but don't quote me on that. I'll put it here on screen for you guys when it's actually getting published. But this book took the internet by storm, y'all. And I could not believe how much of a chokehold this book had on people, let me tell you. Myself included, because let me tell you, the hype is real and true. It's branded as a true enemies to lovers, which I actually do have to agree it is, because obviously one person from the regime and one person from the resistance are falling in love with each other. You know, the deadly assassin for hire, she is the one part of the resistance, and she gets contracted to kill the main guy from the regime. Well, one of the main guys from the regime. But then they get caught, she gets caught in the whole 9 yards, and, you know, she's being held captive by the regime. And then, you know, as time goes on, they start to fall in love, and, you know, the whole X, Y, and Z factors. I did feel like the connection between them started a little soon, if they were saying enemies to lovers. Like, it started about like halfway through the book, and I'm that bitch that likes for them to literally hate their guts like most of the book, and then like in the third act, maybe like the last 20 pages, they could start actually having feelings for each other, and then give me book 2 where they start doing all the stuff for real. But now that I finished the book and I've really sat with my thoughts and feelings, and, you know, I went through everything, I can fully agree that this is still enemies to lovers, and I could see why the author began their connection at the time that they did. But I will say, like, the romance between them, it felt like a secondary, if not maybe even tertiary plot completely, because the political intrigue in this story is chef's kiss, y'all. And that ending had me gooped and gagged, bitch. Oh my gosh. Like, I think it was like the last chapter where it happened, and I was like, there's no way that, you know, the little silent mouse that, you know, was always like hiding behind the shadows or whatever is the one that really turned everything around. Like, oh my gosh, like, I am so excited for book 2 because I know that it's gonna hopefully follow along, like, as soon as the first book finish. I hope that it continues on from right after that. It was just such a good story, honestly. Like, it was very unique to its own. Like, it pulls elements from other like dark fantasy dystopian books, definitely, you know, but the overarching plot was very unique, and just like the plot twist itself, like, there were so many things that happened that I just could not believe. Like, oh, it was so good, guys. I definitely recommend this one highly, and I rated it 4.5 stars. All right, so our next one is My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney. If you know me, I am an Alice Feeney fiend because I love how she writes her thrillers. Oh my gosh, and this was no exception. So definitely this is in the psychological thriller realm. I will say it leans into the domestic thriller side too, but there is psychological aspects to it. And we're basically following this woman that's married to this man. I believe it's Eden is her name. And she goes out for a run one day, and then, you know, she left her phone and her keys at home because she's very used to doing this. And when she's coming back, she sees that the door is locked. And then when she knocks on the door, this woman opens the door that looks identical to her. Like, could be her identical twin sister, okay? And she's like, oh, who are you? Like, how can I help you? And she's like, this is my house. And then she's like, no, it's not, babes. It's my house. And then she calls her husband, and her husband comes, he's like, who is this? How can I help you? And she's literally being gaslit. Like, oh my gosh. And then, you know, the story goes from there. I don't want to say anything else because the story really does pick up from there. And oh my God, Alice Feeney's mind is crazy. Like, what is going on in that mind of hers, y'all? Like, that basic premise that I just told you is how the book was pitched to me originally. And just like with that basic premise, I'm like, what? Like, what? And the plot twist, yeah, plural twists, are diabolical, like crazy, like what the actual fuck type plot twist, okay? Alice Feeney loves a domestic thriller. Like, she loves writing about dysfunctional families or couples. And, you know, I've read a couple of her works already, and I feel like this one was just a tiny bit predictable because, you know, the more that I read from her backlist, the more I kind of get a sense of like her writing style and the ways that she does her plot twists and things like that. It was the same thing happened to me with Frida. Like the more Frida I read, the more I kind of understood the schematics that she follows to get to the point. But I don't let that deviate my rating or my feelings about the book, because, you know, if I'm reading every single book that the author has come out, obviously eventually I'm gonna start figuring things out without needing to. But I gotta admit, anything that Alice Feeney writes, I'm gonna eat it up. And that's why with this one, I rated it a 4.5 star. The next one I want to talk to you guys about is Your Knife, My Heart by K.M. Moronova. This is a dark romance without a doubt, so definitely check your trigger warnings before if you do plan to read this book. But there's like a deep, intense, dark, obsessive, emotional vibe in there that I was eating up. So we are following two POVs in the story, and you know, they both come from very complicated pasts, and they get woven into the same life that becomes very dangerous and emotionally charged in a sense. They're part of this thing called the Dark Forces that are supposed to be training, like it's a military training to go into battle of some sorts. And in the training, you know, they kind of are pitted against each other and things like that just for training purposes. But as their relationship starts to develop, you know, the line between love and destruction starts to get blurred. And it really does force them to confront like a lot of past traumas and, you know, their trust issues and be very vulnerable with each other, which helps develop their relationship at the end of the day too. I am like so obsessed with the MMC of this book. His name is Cameron. He is the sexiest MMC I've read so far this year. The tension and the banter that Cameron and Emery, which is the FMC, had in this story was so severe. It was freaking elite. Like, I loved their relationship, and like I said, the tension that they had between each other and the lust and the wanting, yearning to be with each other. It was elite. And there's just this one specific smutty scene from the story that seriously lives rent-free in my mind. Like, if you've read the book, I feel like you know what scene I'm talking about. And I wish I could say it right now, just so you guys know, because it was so hot. Like, I don't tend to find, you know, straight smutty scenes very like enticing, to put it in a way. You know, like an smutty scene, chef's kiss always hits. It's always hot for me. But this was like one of the first straight smutty scene that I actually like was like, oh my god, okay. But I have to admit, it's mainly Cameron that had me hot and heavy, because that man. And then let me tell you that with dark romance, there's sometimes where I struggle where there's so much smut that the plot gets lost. This is not the case in this one. Like, this one is the perfect blend of smut and plot. Like, and it's being seamlessly blended into the story. Like the smut, you know, like it's not, they're like in this huge battle, but then all of a sudden, let's go fuck in the corner. Like, no, like it's not like that. Like, they really are developing the story and going through things, and all of the things that are important go through fully, and then the smut will be like brought into the story for us to enjoy. I loved this one, honestly. I really did. It was so enjoyable. I also did this one on audio, if I'm not wrong, and the narrators were chef's kiss, honestly, especially the male narrator. Oh my goodness. I rated this one 4 stars, but I wanted to show you guys the book because I have the special edition and it has character art and it's like so good. So first things first, obviously the cover, Gorgina, sprayed edges, Gorgina, and then the character art. Ooh. Come on, look at my daddy, Cameron, yes. And I think there's one more. Oh no, it's just like one quote from the smutty scene that I was talking to you guys about. So weak for a wicked thing like me, aren't you? Love it. I love it so much. I have to read book 2, guys. I have to read it. Oh my gosh. The next one that we're going to talk about is A Song to Drown Rivers by Anne Liang. This is a historical fantasy, and it's very like lyrical, and like the atmosphere is very like tragic and devastating, but like so I don't know what word to use to describe it. But basically we're following this girl by the name of Sishi, and she's chosen basically for her beauty and her intelligence to be trained to infiltrate into enemy territory to basically dismantle that whole kingdom from the inside out. As I was reading this book, it really gave me like Memoirs of a Geisha vibe, if you've seen that movie. I also read the book because I'm pretty sure that there's a book. The prose of this book is stunning, like stunning. It's so lyrical, it's like so poetic, and the imagery is so beautiful. Like, oh my gosh. Just as beautiful that the story is at certain points, just as devastating it is, because like the amount of sorrow and grief that I was experiencing in certain parts in this book were like so surreal. Like I could not believe that a story was making me feel this way. And the actual fact that this is a standalone fantasy, like we don't get a lot of standalone fantasy that's really good like that. Most of the time, all these fantasy books are always trilogies, series of 5, 6 books. Some of them are 8 to 10 books. And I'm like, I can't always commit to such a big series like this, you know? So for this one to be a standalone and to be so amazing and so beautifully written, it's like mind-boggling to me. I will definitely be rereading this book because it was just so perfect in every possible way. And I think like my only qualm was that it was short. It was only like 350 pages at most. I think it was, maybe I'm pretty sure it was less actually, because it's a kind of small book because I had the physical one. But like that's my only qualm, because I wanted more. Like I feel like I did not get enough. Like I just needed more of it. But it was still such a solid one, and I rated it 4 stars. The next one that we're going to talk about is Kill for Me, Kill for You by Steve Kavanaugh. This one, guys, this is a fast-paced thriller, the type of fast-paced thriller that I like to read, okay? And it's definitely very revenge-driven and very good for her, supporting women's rights and wrongs. And I just ate that bitch up because it was so good. We're following 2 complete strangers that don't know each other that just went through a pretty bad thing in their lives, and they're going to therapy, like group therapy together, and they kind of, you know, befriend each other, and they agree to a pact to, you know, kill this person for them, and they'll kill their person, and then vice versa, you know, like they come into an agreement that one person will kill the person that did what's wrong in their life, and vice versa. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but I think you understand what I mean. But not everyone is who they make themselves out to be. And as the story progresses and they are trying to seek justice for the wrongs that were done to their lives, the truth comes out about one person. And okay, I can't say anything else because I'm going into spoiler territory almost here. Okay, so I have literally one thing to say only about this book. It's freaking diabolical. Okay, like the plot twist had me like jaw on the floor, staring at the wall, no thoughts in my head, could not believe what is happening. I was literally reading the book and I was like that Jennifer Lawrence meme when she's eating the hot wings in Hot Ones. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, I was freaking out. Like, I could not believe the shit that I was reading. Just thinking back on those plot twists and the amount of shit that went down in that book, I literally have goosebumps just thinking about those things because of how good it was. Oh my god, that was such a good book. This is why I love doing reading wrap-ups. I just love reminiscing on the books I've read, especially the ones I've really enjoyed. It was so fast-paced. I read it so fast. It was that book that, you know, you just want to keep turning the pages and you just want to keep finding out the next thing because the tea was hot, piping hot the whole time. All in all, I rated it a 4.5 star. I don't even remember why I took off a half point, but I might just change my rating to a 5. It was that good, y'all. I really highly recommend reading this one. All right, the last one in this section is When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. This is obviously a horror and is very dark, very unsettling, very psychological horror. We're following this lady that she's going through a pretty tough time in her life, and she's going through grief and isolation. Then one specific thing happens to her with this child that really leaves her unsettled, and that's where the book starts to pick up pace, and it's fast. I casually stumbled upon this book when I was browsing on KU. Like, I like to just browse on KU sometimes just to see if there's something that's interesting that I could download to my Kindle to read in the future or whatever. But when I read like the synopsis of this one, I was like, okay, I need to read this one. And quite literally, it was like the best decision of my life, because this story genuinely had me terrified. Okay, like I experience horror movies to the level of getting terrified sometimes, but books, it really takes some certain elements for me to really feel spooked. And this one truly did it. And it was Nat Cassidy's writing style that does it, okay? Obviously, if you can tell by the title of the story, it's dealing with werewolves, okay? And that first horror scene with the werewolf, like, that's gonna live in my head forever. Like, it's so creepy, and like, it's heart racing. Like, I had my heart racing, my blood pumping, like, oh my goodness. Like, I was genuinely scared, guys. Genuinely. The gore was top tier. Like, it was so gory, like super, super gory. Like, I thought I had read gory books in the past. No, this one beats these, like, completely. And, you know, I kind of just expected it to be like a little silly little horror book with lots of gore and, you know, maybe not a happily ever after, any of that. But then there was a plot twist that occurred that I was not expecting. And for that plot twist, it's the reason that I read horror, because there's just something to mixing the psychological aspect of horror with actual physical, gory horror, creature horror too. Just blending them like that together is so, oh, like chef's kiss also. It was so good. It was like, I read it so fast. It was a pretty short book. I want to say it might be a novella. I don't know how that's classified, but it was pretty short. It wasn't too long. And honestly, after finishing this one, I'm convinced that I need to read the rest of Nat Cassidy's backlist. I have had Rest Stop on my TBR for so long, and I'm dying to get to it. And now, after reading this one, I'm fully convinced that I need to read not only Rest Stop by him, but the rest of his backlist, because wow. Nat Cassidy knows how to do horror, and he does it well. And I rated this one 4.5 stars. Now we're gonna switch into one specific section of the video that's gonna be strictly dedicated only to the series that I've read in the spring, because I decided to go rogue in the month of May and just read anything I want. I didn't set myself a TBR. I didn't do an overbooked but hooked series video on my channel either, because I just wanted to read whatever I felt like reading for once. And within that rogue state that I was in, I started 3 separate series, and I'm about to finish 2 of those. The first one that I want to talk to you guys about is Arc of a Scythe by Neil Shusterman, and y'all, I was seriously not expecting to be this obsessed with this series, okay? It's definitely a dystopian sci-fi. I feel like it leans more towards dystopian than sci-fi, but I could see why it would be classified as a sci-fi. This is definitely not a new series, so I'm pretty sure that a lot of people know what it's about. But to just give you like a quick little gist about it, we're set in a world where humanity has been able to conquer death and aging and disease and all of those things. And really the only way that they found a way to control the population, since they were able to master those things, is by controlled killings in a sense, but they call them gleanings, and they have assigned persons to do it that are called scythes. And the main story is being followed, like the first book is following like these 2 main characters that get chosen by one scythe to be their apprentice, and they get trained to become scythes. But we don't only follow those 2 characters throughout the entire series. You know, it really does expand into different character lines and different plots. And Neil Shusterman's mind is like so amazingly, like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, he really knew, he put his full foot into this series and more. Like, I was seriously not expecting for this to be a YA. Like, when I saw that it was YA, I was like, you know, it could probably be, you know, very similar to the Hunger Games, I guess. You know, it was very, I thought it would be very comparable to that series, but no, babes. It really does not feel like YA at all. So the first book, I will say, is primarily focused on those 2 characters, like I mentioned, and really building up the world and, you know, really being introduced into the little nuances that go around throughout the world and things like that. And there is something specific that happens at the end of the book that I feel like left me a little bit underwhelmed, but because it felt like, it could be wrapped up here, like nothing else might happen. But I'm so glad that I still decided to continue the series, because book 2, which is Thunderhead, what the fuck? The ending of Thunderhead had me, like I said earlier, literally staring at a wall, like I could not believe what I had just read, because I seriously was not expecting for things to go down the way that they did. And right now I'm reading the 3rd book, which is called The Toll. And the turn that like the whole overarching plot of the entire series has taken is mind-blowing. Like, what the fuck? I know I haven't finished the 3rd book, I know, but I feel like I can confidently say that this is gonna be one of my all-time fave series, like books that I'm gonna be recommending for the rest of my days, because this series has had me on a chokehold these past 3 months. Like, I read Scythe in April and I rated that one a 4.5. I read Thunderhead in May and I rated that one a 4.5 as well. And now in June, kind of right before summer starts, I'm reading The Toll, and every single book has hit. Like there's no boring parts. There's no like useless jargon that's thrown in there to fill in the blanks or time in between certain plots and things like that. Like, everything has a reason. Everything is being told in a way that is leading up to something major. The foreshadowing that Neil Shusterman does throughout these books is insane. Like, there's little Easter eggs that he's been throwing here and there, and I started noticing that now in book 3. But when I start to think back on book 1 and book 2, he was doing the same things throughout the story, throwing little hints and Easter eggs throughout for you to try to grasp the concept of what's coming in the 3rd act, because I've already been through book 1 and book 2, and every single time the 3rd act conflict is wild beyond belief. So I'm expecting that The Toll's the last book, but the 3rd act conflict in The Toll is gonna be massive. I'm already over halfway, and just thinking about it, I want to go read it right now. Oh, so excited. And I'll definitely give my final rating of The Toll in a future video, most likely in my next Overbooked but Hooked series video. The next series that I am reading and about to finish as well is the Plated Prisoner series by Raven Kennedy. Obviously, this one is a dark romantasy, I want to say. And we're following Arin, who she comes from a different realm, and she was, in a sense, purchased. I hate saying it that way, but in a sense, like taken under the wing of Midas, who is the king of maybe Sixth Kingdom. Don't quote me. I think it's Sixth Kingdom, but I'm not fully positive on that one. But he took her under his wing and put her in this gilded cage and uses her power because her power is to turn things into gold. I was gonna say leak, but no, like she could turn things into gold. Like she'll touch something and it'll become gold and solid. So he has her in a gilded cage and uses her to the advantage of using the gold and turning things into gold and things like that. But in the first book, as the story progresses, she starts to uncover that she is just being used. She's not worth anything to this guy, and she really had like this attraction and this dedication to this king. But then she gets swept by her feet by someone else, and I don't want to say anything else because it was this I'm literally like at a loss for words, because this series is my new Roman Empire. Like, just the way that chapter 1 of book 1 started is so crazy and really had me hooked from the jump. And to give you context, I'm already on book 6, which is the last book, and I started book 1 in May, like early May, I want to say at most. So I read the first 4 books in May, and I read the 5th one at the beginning of June, and now I'm already on the 6th one, and we're halfway through June. I just know that when I finish this series, I'm gonna feel like so empty, because I feel like I've been in this world, because the author does such a good job of really like describing the world. Like the imagery that's being used in the book is so well done. You know, Raven Kennedy has built this entire world, and I gotta say, like, the deeper you go into the series, the bigger the world is becoming, but the more you understand it, and the romances in the story, like the couples, there's different couples that we're following throughout the book. You know, there is one main couple, which those are my babies forever and ever. Slade and Oren, love you guys. You guys will always have my heart. But honestly, like the other couple, which is Ostrich and Rissa, I actually low-key am obsessed with them too, especially now in book 6. Like, we're getting so much more of their story that I'm like, yes, please give me more. And then there's one other storyline of Queen Melina, which was the queen married to Midas. We're following her storyline too. And you know, at the beginning of the series, I really was rooting for her. I was really hoping that she would, you know, get her comeuppance and be able to come out of, you know, feeling trapped as well and not wanted and things like that. But I gotta admit, you know, she did have her redemption arc, but now in book 6, that redemption arc is literally, I feel like it's going down the drain for some reason. Like, I really am not enjoying the person that she is. Like, she says one thing but then does the other. Like, she wants to protect her people, but then when she's presented with a situation that she has to protect them, she kind of like, you know, pussies out. Like I don't like that. Like, you know, stick to your words, stick to your truths, and, you know, we support women's rights and wrongs. Like, it doesn't matter if you gotta kill someone that should not be killed. If you gotta do it to save your people, who cares? So I'm very much struggling with Queen Melina's story in book 6. But, you know, as a whole, the series, I don't have a final rating just yet. But with Guild, I rated it a 4. It was a very good start to the series. Then with Glint, which is book 2, I rated it a 3.5. Only because I feel like there was like a whole lot of nothing that was happening for a good portion of the book. But the biggest thing that I enjoyed about that one was Oren's like character development. She really did, you know, find herself and her true purpose. And then, you know, we're introduced to the real man of her dreams, and Slade. And then book 3 was, I think, by far the best book of the entire series. I rated down 4.5. The first smutty scene between Slade and Oren, being told from the perspective of Slade, was chef's motherfucking kiss. OMG, y'all. Like, if this does not like hype you up enough, just take now what I'm saying as even more hype to go read the series so you could get to book 3. Because book 3 is fire. Fire. Book 4 was called Glow, and that one I rated it 4 stars. And then book 5 is called Gold, and I rated that one 4 stars as well. So far with book 6, I have been enjoying it, but you know, that Queen Melina story is really tampering with my feelings about the book. But I'm only 25% of the way, so you know, things could take a turn and get much better. But definitely I'll give my final ratings of the whole series in a later video. And then the last series that I want to talk to you guys about is the Red Rising trilogy, the first 3 books. So I have read the first 2 books, Red Rising and Golden Sun. I'm going to start Morning Star shortly because I was not expecting to get into my sci-fi bag this year. I really was not. If you've been watching my channel for a while now, you know that last year I struggled a lot with sci-fi. I think I was just picking up the wrong sci-fi books. I felt like sci-fi was not for me. But then this year, I did a full 180 and I'm fully in my sci-fi bag, okay? Red Rising is another dystopian sci-fi series, definitely, where it's taking place in a society in Mars, basically. And this whole society is divided into different colors that represents like their status in the world, you know? Starting from the reds, which are the lowest of the low, all the way up to the golds, which are, you know, the tippy tops, the billionaires in a sense, you know? And each specific hierarchy has a specific role to the society and a specific power too. And we're following Darrow, who had a very tragic thing happen to him in book 1, but because of this tragedy, it motivated him to start training to infiltrate into the elite classes and try to spark change from within and, you know, dismantle the full oppressive system that's happening within their society. I really was just like expecting a silly little sci-fi with some political intrigue and maybe like a lot of war scenes and things like that. but this is so much more than that. Like way more than that, y'all. I was not expecting to literally have my heart ripped out, shredded into a bunch of little pieces, and thrown into a fire pit, because that's exactly what this damn series is doing to me, okay? Since the beginning with the tragedy that happened to Daryl, all the way to what happened at the end of Golden Sun, literally the last line of Golden Sun was, I'm literally about to start crying. Like, I could not believe that shit. So this one was based on a recommendation from my brother-in-law, and I literally texted him as soon as I read that last line. I was like, I will be sending Pierce Brown all of my therapy bills. Thank you very much. That ending of book 2 was freaking diabolical. I did not know how to feel, how to react. I literally just stayed in shock. Like, I finished and I put the book down and I was just like, I was like in complete and utter shock, and I still am when I'm thinking about it. And for that reason, I'm running to read Morningstar, because I have to know what's gonna happen next. And I cannot even imagine like what's gonna keep on happening, because my brother-in-law already told me like, you are like, when I finished Red Rising, he's like, you're only scraping the surface. And now when I finish Golden Sun, he's like, you better get ready to have PTSD, because I was like, no, like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. Gosh, oh my God, I cannot talk about the series anymore right now. So overall, Red Rising, I rated that one, let me see, a 4-star. And then Golden Sun, easy 5-star. I finished Golden Sun in one day because of how much was going on, and like, I can't. Cut the show. I'm done. And we have finally arrived to the last and final book that I read this spring, which was my my second 5-star read, because Golden Sun I rated 5 stars too, but my second 5-star read of spring, and that was Nothing Tastes as Good by Luc Dumas. This is obviously a psychological horror that's dealing with some very dark and unsettling introspective topics, and it honestly has amazing social commentary too. And as you can tell, I have it nice and displayed up here because it's definitely like one of my favorite books of this year so far. We're basically following Emmett Truesdale, who has been, dealing with his way and trying to beat societal norms and getting obsessed with fitness and his desire for like food, but that desire for food becomes into something else. I like to compare this book to like, I did not say this, this has been said by many people, but the book is basically described as the movie The Substance mixed and combined with Thinner by Stephen King. And that's probably like the best way to describe this book, honestly. But my favorite thing about this book is that it's being told in mixed media. So it's basically being told through like scientific journals, news articles, police reports, and then there's obviously storyline too. And also like other journal entries and things like that. But I feel like that really builds up the story in a different way than just telling a story from point A to point B, because we're getting other perspectives from different ways. It's basically an Ozempic pill or like injection, I believe it is, that's being submitted to the FDA for approval, but it gets shut down. But then it comes back around, and they're looking for test subjects, and Emmett is one of the test subjects. But obviously, we don't know if there's any side effects or any of that because it's not FDA approved yet. And then, as the story develops and he keeps going through the injections and the trials, he does start to see a difference in his body. He's starting to feel more confident in himself. But that hunger for food starts to become a hunger for humans instead. And yes, my friends, this is a cannibalistic story, and I love a cannibalism horror story. Like, you don't understand, guys. Like, I think about Tenders to Flesh by Agustina Bastarrica. That story is fucked up, like to a wild extent, okay? And then another one that I can think of is What Hunger by Catherine Dang. Another one that's so good. Oh my goodness. Like, this one, Nothing Tastes as Good, falls within the same category for me as What Hunger by Catherine Dang, for sure. I seriously devoured this book, and pun is fully intended with that, okay? I loved it, no notes, 5-star read, will recommend for the rest of my days. But there you have it, besties. Those are the 20 books, I know, 20. That's a lot for me, at least. 20 books that I read this spring Tell me, drop me a comment, let me know. Have you read any of these books? Did you like them? Did you agree with my opinion or disagree with any of my opinions? I love to have these open discussions. I want everyone to know that this is a safe space for you to drop your opinions and feelings in the comments without any repercussions, without any judgments. You know, this is a safe space for everyone. And anyone that doesn't have anything nice to say, you know, you don't have to say anything. You know, you could just keep on going to the next video. Doesn't really affect me in any way, shape, or form. But if you did like this video, make sure to give me a like and subscribe to my channel, and make sure to hit the notification bell so you're notified every single time that I post a new video. And if you made it this far into the video, go ahead and drop me some type of horror or fantasy emoji down in the comments, just so I know who the real ones are that made it all the way to the very end. And with that, bestie, let's get hooked.